Alright, so as of late, I've made quite a few critical videos of Smite in various regards. I've also branched out to trying out other games and stuff like that. And some of you may think that I actually straight up hate Smite at this point. And I am making this video to tell you guys that it's not the case and that there are still plenty of reasons for me to play Smite. And this video is gonna address exactly those. These are the reasons why, after all this time, I still love playing Smite and it's still my main game that I play the most and usually enjoy the most as well. I'm gonna go through various different points here that aren't necessarily all too intertwined, different aspects of the game or surrounding the game, and, well, basically then come to a conclusion. The first point is complexity of items. Now, Smite doesn't have the most complex items, but still there is a decent amount of variety in builds. There are things that can be changed over time, certain items that just, get changes sometimes and get better because of that, but are sometimes just overlooked as well, and new item combinations arise and stuff like that. And many other games don't have that to the same extent. Some other MOBAs have completely eradicated the concept of items altogether, and others have more simple item strategies combining, well, simpler items for less of an impactful change to the game, whereas in Smite, your build is very important. And I like this part of the game very much, especially because I like the whole theory part behind it. They're all testing things out and seeing what is unusual and may have an, well, beneficial effect for your strategy. So, all in all, I really like what the items in Smite offer and how the whole item system is set up. There are other games that offer this, League of Legends and Dota, but in both it's a little differently set up, and sometimes you have to, well, move across the map to get certain items, or you can lose certain items, and that's not the case in Smite, and I think that is very fun for the game and the game's flow. Second point is the perspective. Now, at this point we actually have different MOBAs or kinda MOBA-ish games that are using similar perspectives, but, well, Smite was the first one, the most unique perspective in that regard back then for a MOBA, the third-person perspective. And I think it still shows that this game has been running on this for so long, and the game is, well, really working well around it, whereas other games are just getting started out and kind of need to find their balance in that regard. And as such, I will always enjoy this perspective over the traditional MOBA perspective, the bird's eye perspective, simply because I find that a lot less interactive, a lot less action-packed. Third point for me are the frequent patches. I really like how often Smite is changed. I know some people dislike that because you really have to relearn things often. You really have to, well, you don't really have time for a meta to settle because it might have just changed at that very point again. But I think that's a good thing. Obviously, I can't agree on every change that is made. I don't think anyone can. But in general, I think it is fun to have an ever-changing meta and to always be able to learn something new about the game because something has changed. Obviously, for me as a content creator, it's also beneficial to not always have to think of something unique for the day because sometimes it's just there with the patch changes and I can just talk about what has changed and how it impacts the game. The next point is the relic or active system. Now, I don't fully agree with the current relic system and how it works. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But I like the idea of the relics and actives in general. I really like the idea of the actives back in the day where you could upgrade them to different stages. I like that you're not getting access to all of them at once, whereas, for example, in League of Legends, you just start with those, well, similar things to relics they have there. And that kind of gives the game a different flow, and the fact that you can buy them in the game depending on the opposition gives you some more counterplay options, some more flexibility in regards to what you can use, and it also makes a lot more niche picks, like for example Phantom, more interesting because you can actually choose them without being punished for it. Other games either don't have this at all, they have it in form of something you buy before the match, or they have it in tie with certain full items that you buy that have an additional active effect, which makes it a little harder and a little more situational in which ones you can get at which point. Whereas in Smite, those are totally independent from the rest of your build. What I also like is the flexibility in roles and positions. There are many gods in Smite that can still be used in various positions, especially going for mages in the duo lane, or warriors in the support role and stuff like that. Obviously, not everyone is completely flexible, but still, in comparison to any other games, you really don't have to be in that specific lane with that specific character, and that, I think, is a great advantage of Smite that makes it more fun to try out new things, uncommon things as well, that sometimes the enemy will just not know how to counterplay, as long as you can make your team work around it. Another benefit of Smite, another great thing about Smite, is the variety of game modes. Now, I have recently talked about potentially removing game modes, I'm well aware of that, but that doesn't mean that I don't think the variety of game modes in themselves is great, and the fact that we have so many different ones gives you some sort of option to always choose from. If you're not willing to play Conquest, there are plenty of modes that allow you to never even look at Conquest and still have fun in Smite. And if you're just looking for a break from, for example, 5v5, then you can go for a 4v4, you can go for a 3v3, you can go for a 1v1, and who knows, maybe in due time there will be a 2v2 as well. I can't tell the future in that regard. But really, there are many options depending on your mood, and some kind of feel more like they allow you to take a bit more of a break while playing as well, and that is something that I think is very enjoyable. Something that I feel often gets undervalued when it comes to games like Smite is how complex they can actually be. The complexity and fun this game offers when playing it as a team is insanely high. The problem is obviously not every team will play as a team. And in solo queues, in ranked queues, in any sort of random queues, this will often not be true and the game can become frustrating. But if you either find a really good team, you're just lucky and you have a good team of randoms that work together towards a goal, or you queue as a premade and you automatically have those players with you and you're able to coordinate with them, then Smite can just be a whole lot of fun, simply due to the way it works and due to the way that there are certain interactions between characters, there are certain combinations that counter specific comps and stuff like that, that really make the game fun. That is why I think it's always fun to watch high-level competitive Smite. At a high level, when there's a fully coordinated team with practice, with coordination, with a game plan, Smite is ultra fun to watch. And if you can get some of that in your own games and you can find a team that you can play like that with, not on the same level obviously, but following the same concept, then the game is really fun. There's the last point that is rather specific. This is specifically for Conquest especially. It doesn't really apply for most other modes to the same extent. Now, in this year, we've gotten a lot of new games, and a lot of them are a lot of fun. But I found one flaw across many of those games. I'm not gonna throw out many names here because I think you can tell which games I mean anyways, or if you have played any newer games, then you will have realized. A lot of games that came out are kind of focused on having rather quick, short-lived games, so you have a short experience with your teammate, and then you move on to the next game, and that's it. And that is fine, because, you know, that fun, quick, somewhat casual experience, more or less, is definitely a good factor for many games. But I enjoy some longer, well, more strategic games, as Smite's Conquest mode usually is, a lot. Now, obviously, this doesn't count for 10-minute pub stomps, and there is a point where the game gets too long, which is, for example, why Paragon was not very successful when it came out. But in its current state, Conquest, for me, has a very nice duration. It's not fun if you have something to do shortly after and you can't really invest that much time, but if you have the time to play the mode, it is the time I feel like I want to spend in a match without having the feeling that I spent more time like queuing up for the next one and selecting a character again and all that stuff that comes in between, but actually playing the game and having fun while playing the game. And I think that's a great factor, and I hope that doesn't change all too much with the upcoming seasons. So these are the reasons why I still enjoy Smite so much and why I still love this game as a whole. Simply because it has many factors that other games don't offer to the same extent, that make it unique, that make it stand out, and that make it feel fresh very often whenever you play it. Obviously, like I said, the game also has many flaws. There are many things that I like to complain about, but I think this is partially due to me enjoying the game, and I have a feeling that if certain things stay unaddressed for too long, it may make the game less enjoyable than it can be. So for me, often this criticism is tied with seeing more potential in certain places and feeling the need to point that out. Doesn't mean that I hate the game. With that, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you for the next one very soon. Also, in case you did not know yet, I will be going to Hi-Rez Expo. I will be going to the Smite World Championship very soon. So, just letting you know, in case you weren't aware, if you see me there, absolutely go and say hi. There will be videos of the time I'm gone. SLOTH, out.